everyone, it's Kat and I am back today to do a multi-look review on a brand new palette. As I am currently sitting here, look, I'm wearing neutrals, which makes me look pale as heck. I've got a brand new palette that, as I'm filming this, has not even been revealed. The sneak peek of like a blurred palette, not even the name, not even anything, has not been revealed as I am filming this, so I feel very special. So this is the Sugar and Spice palette. So this is their brand new palette. I currently don't have release information. I know nothing about it. This was sent to me in PR, so thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Since my last Glaminatrix video, they did actually reach out and give me a discount code for my viewers. So if you want 10% off your Glaminatrix order, you can use the code CAT. I'll have all the details in the description box, the launch details and the link and the code. Click on the link, use the code, let them know that I've sent you and save yourself a couple of bucks. Why not? But it's this brown palette. It's the same sort of texture as their green one. Before I do compare this to the other palettes, because I feel like there's something that I need to talk on that's very different from the other palettes, let's actually show you something that's inside, because you don't want to wait. I don't want to make you wait. Let's do it. This is the new palette. So this palette is very cool toned. There's some different dimension going on. One thing that's really, really fascinating, and I'm going to try to get the color shift, but I don't know if I can get it super well, but this vibrant front-facing pink, when I look at it, it looks like a grass green. When I'm looking at the palette, I see green, green, brown, green, green. I'm just going to read their description from the information card because that's all I have to go on. They said, we created the perfect everyday palette with our unique flavor combinations with the aim to make it approachable for every skin tone and makeup preference. Sugar and Spice includes highly impactful duochromes and multichromes combined with everyday wearable mattes. Set off with a unique combination of pastels that can be mixed into the neutral mattes to create a more grungy, cool or warm toned eye. Now, I think when people hear Sugar and Spice, they instantly think of spice and they think of mustardy shades and like orangey red shades and, you know, bright yellows and stuff. So this is very different from what I think of when I hear a spice palette. And I feel like also Sugar and Spice, people always emphasize the spice, the sugar sort of gets forgotten. Whereas I think this is mainly focusing on the sugar with some sort of spicy elements to it. So all these down here remind me of like sugared almonds or Easter egg sort of wrappers or fairy floss. Like it's a very soft pastel sort of vibe. And then you have these sort of beautiful finishes here. Like they all look like they have something different going on. They sort of look a little bit, besides the bright pink, they look a little bit basic and neutral. These look quite gold, but again, on my angle, they look really, really green. This one looks like a shimmery white. On my angle, it almost looks like a mint with like a yellow shimmer through it. Like there's a lot of dimension going on here, which is cool, a lot of texture. Then you have your basic mattes and then you alternate matte, shimmer, matte when it comes to the pastels. So this is predominantly cool toned. I think it's really fun. One thing I really think is worth noting if you've got these palettes or any of their past palettes, they have changed the pan size. So this format is very similar to the Nearly Natural, which is my all-time pick of theirs. It's my favorite palette. And it looks like, oh yeah, it could be the same thing, but you'll notice it is smaller. There you go, that's it lined up. So it is smaller and the pan sizes are smaller. So I don't yet know how much each pan contains. So that's a size difference there. You can also see how these palettes can work really harmoniously together. All these sort of cool tone brownie and the black, you don't have them here. There's a lot of like warm, sort of caramel browns. You've got some nice mauvey tones. This one would work perfectly with that one, which is great. Obviously, since filming this, there's been updates and more information given about the pan sizes. So essentially, what they did was they reduced the pan sizes by about 0.5 gram per shade. So this one is going to have 15 grams over the whole palette, and each pan should have 1 gram each. Apparently the pans, even though they are smaller in diameter, they're deeper, so they do hold a fair amount of product. To keep the palette roughly the same price as the past palette, so this is 85 Australian dollars, with the cost of living and the prices of everything going up, they had to decide, do they want the big pans and to increase the cost, or slightly reduce the pan sizes, slightly reduce the palette, and keep it roughly the same price as their past palettes. Let's swatch this with no primer on my arm. This is just bare arm. First 3 shades, they pick up very, very smoothly. We've got vanilla. This is like one of those topper multi-chromes. I think you can see a bit of pink and maybe a bit of definitely gold in your angle. From my angle, I can see green and purple up here, which is really, really cool. The shade Fennel looks quite similar, just a bit more vibrant. So again, you see more of a gold reflect, maybe a bit of, I don't know, orange at the top, whereas I see purple and vibrant green. I'll try to pick this up from different angles later. The next shade is Nutmeg, and this is like a metallic rose gold with like silver shimmer in it. Oh my God, that is divine. Divine. So this beautiful sort of browny rosy base with this like silver sparkle through it, and like there's still a lot on my finger. There's a lot going on there. That's really gorgeous. All right, we're going to talk about the next 2 shades. We've got Mustard and Star Anise. Star Anise is that really smooth sort of magenta pink that's got a multi-chrome like oil spill sort of effect going on. So some lights it looks really green, other lights it looks really pink or red, bit of gold. And then the shade Mustard is more of a, it's like a flakier glitter. So it's got bigger sort of glitter particles. All right, so Mustard is that flaky green. It's like a forest green. It looks really old gold front on, and in my angle it looks very, very similar to this plant that I currently have next to me. This plant. Star Anise, this is the star of the show. Again, I'm seeing vibrant like grass green from my angle. Front on you're seeing like a beautiful raspberry shade. These mattes are very nice to pick up. They're very smooth, they feel very finely milled, and they look very pigmented, but there's no kick up in the pan whatsoever. Like, look at that. There's no flakiness, there's nothing coming off, really smooth. So this is Vanilla. We've got Brulee, which is pretty much my skin tone. Oop, so much my skin tone, I nearly swatched over it. Hang on, I'll fix that. Dry that again. This is Sticky Date, which is this beautiful, like almost greeny grey. There's a little bit of like, yeah, green tones to it. I think it's quite unique, very pretty. Then there's Brownie, which is a dark brown. This is more of, there's like more red tones to it. And then there's Licorice, which is a black. Now, again, there is no kick up with this black, so it's a bit of a neat one, which is good. I find that I get scared of black because if you get any on your base, it really can ruin things. But this one, I feel like it's one that you build up. So you take it slow, you build it up to get more opacity, and it doesn't sort of rain down your face. So it can get quite black. I'll just turn that up a little bit. It can get quite black, but you need to sort of build it. So it's easier to work with black. This one's Taffy. It's a matte. It's like a canary light yellow. That pops. That's really cool. And I can imagine mixing it with like grey, for example, to making it more like a murky light yellow. I think it could be cool. We got Lavender, which is beautiful. I feel like this is a pretty popular color from indie brands like Kaleidos tend to make these sort of colors. Looks nice and cool toned at front angle, like almost periwinkle, and it reflects a lot more pink. So I'll show you again in the angle soon. And then we have Gumdrop, which complements that beautifully. Again, I think this one needs to be built up a little bit just to see it properly. But this is that beautiful sort of vibrant, what would you call that? Not lilac, lavender, something like that. Something like that. All right, last two, we've got Basil, which looks more, oh, this is very cool. It looks blue beige sort of front on, and in my angle it looks vibrant purple. So this look like reflex pink, this reflex purple. Very, very cool. And then we have Mint, which is of course a mint, and that's quite nicely pigmented for a mint. I really like I like this. This is so sort of obscure and so different. Pastel, basic mattes, and beautiful texture with different shifts. I think this is very unique for a palette, and I just want to play with all different bits. So on the screen there will be phone footage, hopefully showing the different color shifts from front on to tilted on an angle and catching the light in a different way. So hopefully that helps you see the shift a bit better. Hooray, my audio didn't record for my demo or my second look, sorry. So I'm going to narrate them both. First thing I'm doing is getting the shade Brulee and just setting my crease, putting a bit of purple. So this is Gumdrop, the matte purple. I add in a little bit of Sticky Date just to sort of mute that color down a little bit and see how it mixes. Going in with the shade Vanilla. This is just to see how it looks as an inner corner highlight, nice and twinkly, very yellow. Speaking of yellow, going in with the pastel yellow, this is Taffy. Now, what you'll see is it looks very light on camera, but in the pan it actually looks more yellow. So it is definitely a pastel. Going in with Lavender, nice and shimmery, pretty, quite soft. What else are we doing? More lavender. All right, I tried to use mustard in the outer corner, but it was too chunky. So I thought this is not where it goes. We're not doing this today. Instead, we're going over with brownie to cover that up and make a bit more of a smoky eye. I think I just get a blending brush after this, just one that I used in the crease, and I just blend it all out. Blend, blend, blend. This is Sticky Date again, I think just to add a bit of depth to the lower lash line to even it out, and a bit more lavender. Tapped on the lid with my finger just to intensify it and bring back some more purple tones. Oh, I don't know why I did this. Taffy in the sort of inner corner crease. Just to, what else are we doing here? I don't even know. Fennel. I think this is Fennel. Again, just to add different colours and dimension. And that's it with liner and chunky mascara. Throw that mascara out, girl. That is horrible. All right, poor cat. She thought this was also recording audio. It's not. This look, not my favourite. Doesn't really suit me. Shows why really light colours on my lower lash line or even in my waterline just makes my eyes look a bit funny. But I wanted to play with the cooler colours. I went with Basil all over the lid. This is a very beautiful shade. It's a very wet look. It's very twinkly. It gives this sort of beautiful blue wet look iridescence to the eye. You can build it up, we can blend it out to make it a bit more twinkly. I think it's really fun. I did put Sticky Date in the crease here and it looks very, very grey blue. I found, and you'll see this throughout this video, blended out, this shade on me looks very cool toned. In the swatch it almost looked like a greeny brown, but it looks very grey on me. The mint, again, very light, probably lighter than it looks in the pan, and that was just on the lower lash line for, I don't know, experiments. Okay, so I'm back with look number 3. I just wanted to use this shade all over the lid because I wanted this shade to be the predominant shade. I want to catch the color shift. I want to show it to you. And I just wanted to blend that out very subtly, but I feel like I didn't do a very good job with that. I also put that on the lower lash line. So what I'm going to do is zoom in, but also turn the camera around with me so we can see the color shift. So this is the eye look close up. You can see it's a very intense, I think in person, it actually looks a lot more pink on the eye. It looks a lot vibrant. So what I can see is like fuchsia pink, and then in the corner I can see green. So if you can see green here, it's not the matte, it's not any other eyeshadow, that's the shift. Okay, I'm holding the camera. I'm going to actually lock this so it doesn't go in and out of focus. You can see that it looks very pink. Then hopefully as we turn around, oh, we're seeing some green and we're seeing some gold. It's looking really green when I turn my back to the light. And there we go. Look at that. So yeah, it's a very fun multi-chrome. We're going back to the pink. Bam. So a lot of fun. This is a very cool shade. You can imagine just even having it as, like I've done today, I haven't put any mascara on my lower lash line so you can see it. But even if I turn around, you can see it really well on the lower lash line. So even if you wanted to have like brown or something basic on the top lid to keep it a little bit more conventional and just have that as like a pop on the lower lash line, like you can definitely see the multi-chrome effect with that. Or like I said, just even apply it a little bit wet as a liner. Very cool. Love it. Beautiful. All right, I'm just about to go off and wipe this off and do another look. One thing I'm trying to do for look number 4 is I want to create a warm vibe, because the description of this palette is that you can mix them to create cool sort of grungy looks, but also warm. So far, I feel like everything is leaning very cool. So I've taken that brown, and every time I've applied it, it looks very, very grey, very sort of stormy sky grey, a little bit bluish. I like it, but I'm sort of missing something warm because I do really like to contrast shades. If I'm wearing something very cool, I sort of want to be able to put something a little bit warmer in the crease, or if I've got a warm shimmer, I like to go cool in the crease. I sort of like to neutralize them a little bit, or I don't know, contrast them a little bit. So I'm going to try to see if I can mix this down with this shade to get something a little bit warmer in the crease, because I'm just feeling like it's very smoky so far. All right, this got out of hand very quickly. So I said I wanted to see if that shade, the shade being brownie, when mixed with the lighter shades, does it create a warm shade? No. I would say this is a neutral brown, but it's definitely a smoky brown. So what I ended up doing was applying this sort of up to the brow bone-ish. I still think it's way too, like it's too light. And then this to sort of in the crease. I jumped to brownie because I have been using this a lot, jumped to brownie, and I started putting in the crease to see if I could blend it to like a light brown shade. I couldn't. It was just too dark. I'm sure some people can, but I didn't find it the most blendable, that it was very easy to put a little light wash of color on. So what I ended up doing was going, okay, we're going to create yet another look. So I'm going to do another look after this because this is too bold for my daily life. But I ended up taking that brown and putting it all over the lid fairly lightly, so this is not built up. It can be built up a lot more. And also a combo of this one and that one on the lower lash line to make a smoky base. Now it does show you can create a really beautiful smoky base, like if a smoky eye. So if you wanted to go out and you wanted to have like a smoky eye effect, you could totally use this row and it will create it beautifully. You could even take that black and sort of wing it out a little bit in the outer corner just to intensify the lash line outer corner to make it like a little bit more like cat eye and beautiful. So yeah, you can totally smoky eye. This is a smoky eye row, definitely. What I want to do, because I really want to test the shade Mustard that I said was a little bit flaky, and I sort of wanted to test it over a dark base and see if it gives a twinkly effect. I thought I'll do that on camera. So what I'm actually going to do is take Mustard. Let's just pause here for a second. This looks horrible. This is a good example of why I really don't like chalky, light, off-white mattes in palettes. They clash with most skin tones. You've got to be very, 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 very fair to have this work on you. This just looks like I'm wearing clown makeup. It's not cool. On my finger, because I think it's a little bit flaky, just the nature of the glitter, it's very flaky. So I want this to be patted on, and I'm just gonna tap that on. Again, you can build this up. You can put like on top of, this is on a matte eyeshadow, by the way, so it's gripping very nicely to this matte eyeshadow. I think if I used a brush, it would be a little bit more, there'd be a bit more fallout. There's a tiny bit, but nothing crazy. And if you wanted this to be really intense, I would put it over like a glitter glue or a very sort of sticky base. But this is really beautiful just as that sort of foiled gold, freckled, flaky. I don't know, you know what I mean. Now, what I would do to finish that off personally is just take an angled brush. I'm going to get the shade Licorice, which is the black, and I'm just touching it. I'm not rubbing the shade because I don't want to pick too much up. I'm just touching it just on the side. And I'm going to just finish that off by doing a little bit of shape there. Now, this is actually an eyebrow brush, so it's a little bit scratchy. Bad choice on my part, but it was on hand. This is like the glamorous going out smoky eye with a bit of twinkle. Surprisingly easy to create. The hardest part about this look was to softly blend the dark brown because it was quite pigmented. You can see just pressing that glitter on is really gorgeous. Gives a really dramatic effect. All right, look number 5 is it? This is a look that's staying today, and it is probably my favorite I've done so far. Not because like I love the texture, I love the color, but this is just so simple, so classic. There's a little bit of fun, and I just feel like it's really easy to wear. So what I've done today, I'll zoom in. I've got a little bit of gumdrop. I've got a little bit of purple going on these two, but predominantly I've just used this shade up here, which is like, it's called Nutmeg. It's that sparkly rose gold with like what looks like silver sparkle in it. Very, very pretty. It's cool tone, like it's a cool tone nude, but very twinkly. Now, if you like this color and you don't have this palette, this is, bundle it. If you want this palette, get this, because this sort of twinkly nude effect is what is this palette's all about. Warm shades, cool shades, it is very, very similar. I feel like this is a bit more metallic. This is a little bit more, I want to say gritty. It's not the right term. It's just more sparkly. A lot of these are more like smooth metallics that look very, very shiny. The wine shade down there has little specks of silver and it makes it look like this burgundy metallic with like night sky twinkly. It's really beautiful. This has that same kind of silvery, gritty, sparkly twinkle. It doesn't feel gritty, but it, you know what I mean? It's like separate sparkles. So it is a different texture slightly, but it's the same kind of beautiful, very, very sparkly nude effect that you get with this palette. Now I paired it with this shade here just to blend it out, and then I went in with these two. So the matte I ran on the lower lash line and sort of flicked it out. I also put it in the crease a little bit, and this shade here I put on the inner corner as like the highlight, so the bottom is all purple, and then I used the dark brown here as a bit of a wing just to create more of a lifted eye look. So that's it zoomed in. Hopefully you can see the nice twinkle nature. It's very fairy princess-ish, but like wearable. And then what you probably can't see is this color is vibrant. I've turned down the ISO heaps. It looks horrible. My skin looks horrible, but you can see how that sort of glows purple. That's how it looks in real life. It has that sort of glowiness to the purple, which is gorgeous. All right, so this is look number 6. It's a very, very quick one. So I'm not even going to set up my camera. I'm just going to film from my phone. I've just used the shade Vanilla all over the lid. It's the first shade in the palette. So that one where my thumb is, you can see it's very yellow when applied. It's like an iridescent sort of white that mainly shifts yellow. It's got a little bit of blue and green sort of shift to it as well. And then I just blended it out a little bit in the crease with a warm shade from the Nearly Natural, and I put the warm shade on my lower lash line as well. I'm finding that the two light mattes, they're too light to actually like finish off the eye and sculpt the eye, but then the darker shades are too cool toned and they make everything a bit smoky. So I have dipped into the Nearly Natural. All right, a few hours later, and we've been out, we've done a kids catch up thing, and now everyone's asleep. So what I'm doing is I'm actually putting some NYX glitter glue. I've just put on top of Vanilla, and I'm going to add to it. I want to play with the shade Fennel, which is the one next to it, but I want it to be really intense. So I wanted some glitter glue, and I'm just going to play with some other colors and do just a bit of a brighter, more vibrant look. So building on Vanilla. All right, I love that. That was super easy to apply. I think also since it was over glitter glue, it just looks superb. Look how beautiful. Look, my messy study. But can I catch some light? It's just gorgeous. It's like there's grass green, but a little bit of like teal and a little bit of gold. Really pretty. Now I don't know what to do with the rest of it. I sort of want that just to be the main focus, but there's other shades I want to play with. So I'm like, do I mint this up and make it a lot mintier? I think that's such a pretty look. I like this color more than Vanilla. I think Vanilla looked bold. I sort of wish Vanilla was a little bit sheerer, because I feel like it could make a really beautiful sort of just twinkly everyday look. But because it was a little bit bolder, it was that, is it subtle? Is it colorful? I don't really know. Whereas this is obviously colorful and it just looks nice. So I'm going to add to this, but I'm just going to tell you that I would just leave it like this because I think it's beautiful. Ooh, I like this look. So I added the mint in the crease just to sort of blend the color out. And I have to say, the shade Fennel, which is the one all over the lid, and the mint, they don't look like they'll match. So Fennel is the one up here and the mint is obviously in the corner near my eye. They don't look like they'll match very well, but when you actually hold them to the side, you can see that they actually, the green reflect matches mint perfectly. So they are actually a beautiful combination. It blends it out and complements the shimmer super, super well. What I ended up doing on the lower lash line, I'm on the hunt for a more sort of grungy color because I don't feel like I've found it yet. I'm also on the hunt for a warm color. So I mixed taffy and sticky date. So taffy is the yellow, you can see it's got some brown in it, and sticky date is the shade right in the middle. It didn't create a warm shade. I was expecting a sort of like maybe a more caramel brown. It actually made, when you mix it together, it makes more of like a, I'll get a little bit more brown, hang on. It makes more of like a grungy green. So I actually put that on my lower lash line. And I put it in the outer corner just to add a little bit more depth because I didn't want neon, like not neon, pastel green everywhere. So that's added a little bit of swampy green, which I really like. What I love about this shade is, and you can see it here, when it catches the light here, it's looking like warm toned, it's looking gold, but then in the corners, it almost looks like a minty grass green through to almost like aqua green, like a nice, like it's a beautiful goldy green color that I think will suit people with warm undertones, with cool undertones, and in different lights it looks different as well. All right, final look using this palette just because I want to start editing it and getting it up. So today I went with I wanted to lean into the sort of cool tone shimmery shades because they're the ones that I think are the most fun, or the ones that I want to reach for the most anyway. So what I did on my eyes today was I put this on the inner portion and then I put this shade on the outer. So I almost did like the halo eye sort of effect, but it sort of goes purple, blue, purple. And then I blended out very, very softly with this shade just in the crease to create a very slight shadow just to finish it off. So that's what I've done. I'll zoom in. I also put some blue pencil liner on to really emphasize that blue. All right, so that's the look. One thing that I think is really interesting to point out as well is, okay, I love this purple shimmer, but that blue effect from Basil, which is this one here, it's got a much more shinier effect to it, which I think is really, really pretty. So you get this sort of nice purple reflect, but then the blue is what gives like a wet look. So the effect of them are just very different in terms of how much they reflect light. All right, time for the conclusion. I'm going to talk about some just general talking points first, and then I'm going to talk about some pros and cons. So firstly, neutral point is the size. I like a smaller, more compact palette that has more variety and not massive pans. I don't want to be spending heaps of money on pans that are going to go off by the time I use them up. Like, I don't mind this shift. I also think it's quite smart if the cost of products are getting more expensive, reducing the size, like I'm okay with that. I understand that they want to keep their palette prices between a certain range, and if they need to reduce the pan size slightly to hit that mark, I would prefer to do that than pay like in excess of 100 Australian dollars for a bigger palette. That's just me. Manufacturing of these have changed. So this is, I think, the first palette where they have manufactured them in China rather than hand making them. Now, it is going to be up to you what you think about that. From my point of view, I'm going to say this performs as well as the last palettes, but it feels more sturdy. So you can pick up the product. Some of the mattes might feel a little bit pressed, a little bit firmer, but you can pick it up, you can layer them. There's no problem with the performance. I feel like the quality of the eyeshadows apply and feel and look the same as their past palettes. So it just feels like if you drop it, it's not going to break, which is great. So I think if they're having to scale up their production, it's because they want to create more palettes for everyone, and they can't do it in the way that they were previously doing it. So I think that makes perfect sense. But if you want your makeup hand pressed by someone, this might disappoint you. But for me, I think if I didn't know that, I wouldn't really have noticed much of a difference. The price point of this, I think, is 85 Australian dollars, which is the same price point as like past palettes. I think in Australia, again, I sort of liken it, that's very similar to an Urban Decay palette, so, or a Too Faced palette, so it falls into that category. I think it's fairly competitive for the quality of this, and also the pigments I use, so they're more expensive pigments. So yeah, it is not a cheap palette. I would mainly recommend it to you if you love the color story and you think you're going to use it all. Yeah, that's the price. Pros for me, I think I've touched on some of them. I think it's a unique color story. I think it works well with their past palettes. What they keep doing, which I think is a good idea for now, but it's going to get to a point where they have to rethink this slightly, is they want to build on their past palettes rather than being repetitive, which I think is excellent. That's great. I think there are limitations to that though. I think they're going to limit themselves creatively. You don't want to have the same shades in every palette, but I think that's sort of assuming that your customers have your past repertoire of palettes, which not everyone will. And I think Glaminatrix as well, they have some palettes that keep coming back, but then they sort of discontinue older ones. I think as they discontinue older ones, they should start bringing some of those color stories into here, because otherwise you're going to find things are getting a little bit disjointed, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. So I think the main pros of this palette for me are that I like the formula of it. They all apply really nicely. Even though they are slightly more firmly pressed, I think they pick up really nicely on the brush. They apply really nicely on the eye. I didn't need to reach for a glitter glue to make these stick or work. They just applied nicely over a normal primer. Of course, you can intensify over something more sticky like a glitter glue, but these all applied really nicely. There wasn't much fallout. I didn't have any issues using this. If you want the most intense pigmented soft black, this one is very intense, but it's one that you sort of build up rather than just, you know, you've got a brush and it just instantly blacks out your eye. If you want that, these are probably a little bit too firm for you, but I think these are more manageable. So I really like the formula they've got with this, so that's excellent. I like the color story. It's not my perfect color story, and that's my only sort of con, which I'll talk about in a minute. This will probably flow onto that, but I really like that they've gone somewhere different. They've got the sort of textures and multichromes and duochromes that they're well known for, and they've got a whole row of that. They're like, here's a whole row of special shades. Then there's a whole row of really basic shades that you can use every day, to work, to a funeral, to church, to wherever you want to go. You can use all of these. And then if you want a bit of a pop of fun color, you've got your pastels, which are a mix of matte and shimmer. So the split of matte and shimmer I think is a really good one. And I also like that they've sort of combined 3 areas of eyeshadows into a unique pairing. And then they've sort of found a link, which is sort of like sweet and sort of, I don't really get the spice personally. I don't see spice, but it's a loose interpretation of spice. They've named things like lavender, basil, and mint. They actually aren't technically spices. Basil and mint are herbs. So there's like, it's a loose interpretation, and I think it's a catches people off guard, but I like it. I also really like it being a cooler tone palette because, yeah, they're harder to get. I think maybe the thing that I don't like the most about this is probably the middle row. It's not the formula. I think the formula is fine. I think the fact that it goes from very, very light through to very, very dark without much in between is limiting for me personally and how I like to do my makeup. If you really like a blanked out white lid and then like black in the crease, and you like that really mod contrasted look, you'll love this and you'll use the crap out of this. For me, when I use a matte, I usually reach for a mid-toned matte, maybe one that's similar to my skin tone, and then occasionally if I want to smoke something up, a slightly darker one. So I sort of hover around this area the most, which was my most used matte area of this palette. And I just found that whenever I delved into these two, I'd be like, oh, it's actually a bit too dark. And whenever I went over here, I was like, that has gone too chalky very quickly. Now, my skin tone, when I look at a foundation range, I'm usually like the 4th lightest. So the fact that this is almost white on me, I didn't personally like it. I don't like white matte eyeshadow. So there's going to be a few people that are going to look at this and go, yeah, I'm using this every day. This is amazing. So I reckon I would have tweaked this row personally to make it a bit more usable. And they do talk about being able to mix it to make warmer tones. I couldn't do it. Yes, you could mix this with that or this with that to create a light lemon yellow. I didn't want to. I don't want to lighten this. I think any lighter is too light for me. And whenever I tried to mix anything with these, it just instantly made it very gray. And also it wasn't the easiest thing to mix. So mixing quite a light shade with quite a dark shade, yes, you can do it, but to get a consistent color on each eye takes a bit of work and takes a bit of blending. So I just think it's easier to reach for a mid-tone shade and it be done. So the only warmth that I could find in this palette was definitely the yellow, definitely some of the gold tones in these, but that was pretty much it. Overall, to me, it was a very smoky, cool toned palette with pops of fun shimmer and pops of pastel. So that was, yeah, the sort of grungy warm, I couldn't really find personally. But that's just a description issue. That's not actually a problem with the palette. It was just sort of an expectation that I sort of had. I actually did swatch the mattes, and I sort of put in what I would have preferred to keep it cool toned, because I think they should have lent into the cool tone element of this and been like, yes, it's cool toned. Instead of it going like very, very light, and then quite into dark, I would have put some more purpley toned nudes, one that's a little bit warmer, that it can, so you have like, I don't know, more variety. You can go very, very gray, you can go black, but you can also warm it up slightly, and not with orange shades, just more purpley shades, something a bit warmer. Because I find that the top shades, I found that if I wanted to emphasize the color in it, I found this one was the easiest because it pairs really nicely with the mint. I just found these sort of shades really made some of these quite harsh. So for example, when I put that all over the lid and I used that in the crease, I think it was, it just changed the effect of it instantly. Whereas it would have been nice to have something a bit softer that wasn't quite like chalky white, to blend that out and to just make this shine. I found like these sort of detracted a little bit. They turned everything quite smoky. So I would call this a smoky palette with pastels and fun shimmers. So yeah, if that's for you, this is your dream palette. For me, I would have liked the middle row to be a little bit softer. I do think the reason they made this the way it was is because some of their past palettes do have sort of similar shades that I was saying this would benefit from. So I think they are a little bit scared to double dip and be repetitive. But again, I think that is going to limit them in the future, because I think this could have been just a little bit more usable and a little bit more everyday friendly if they weren't so scared to not have identical colors, but slightly tweak the colors of past palettes that they have. So a massive thank you to Glaminatrix for sending this to me. I've had a really fun time playing with it, and I can definitely see myself, you know, it's a nice sunny day today, but we're in winter, going to be going into spring soon enough. And I can just see myself reaching for this row and some of these shades here to create beautiful sort of light, but sort of interesting spring looks. So this one's definitely staying out for me to play with more on my makeup table. So if you do want to check out this palette, it is launching this weekend. I will have times in the description box. I'll also have my discount code, so if you want to save 10% off, use the code CAT. And yeah, I also highly recommend checking this one out if you like neutrals. But they do have a fun back catalogue, very, very sparkly, very textured, and quite grungy. So I think if you like that vibe, check out the other palettes I have on their website. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the palette. I will see you in the next one. Bye.